Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror, action, and fantasy movie called Tag. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Somewhere in Japan, two buses filled with high school girls travel for a trip. While the others have fun with the pillow fight, Mitsuko sits silently and writes poems in her notebook. However, her classmates are teasing her because she should be enjoying the trip. Because of this, they playfully try to pull her notebook away, but Mitsuko's pen falls to the floor, so she gets up to retrieve it. Suddenly, an invisible force slices off the bus before them, and everyone gets bisected in half. Before the people in the second bus could react, they also get ripped in half, except for Mitsuko, who's still on the floor. Seeing everyone's bodies spouting out blood, Mitsuko could hardly move or process what was happening. Then, the bus comes to a halt, and the invisible force tries to kill her too, but she ducks from it. Mitsuko realizes that there's something in the wind that allows it to cut anything, and it's responsible for the death of her friends. Later on, Mitsuko runs out into the road and sees a bunch of hikers. She tries to warn them, but she only manages to save one woman while the others get bisected. Just then, a group of cyclists passes by, and as the woman tries to warn them, the wind slices her in half along with the cyclists. Because of this, Mitsuko freezes in horror, but she has to keep moving or she'll die too. Later on, she runs through the woods until she reaches a stream filled with corpses of some girls from another school. There, she changes into a new uniform and washes the blood off herself. Shortly after, she keeps walking until she reaches an all-girls high school, where everyone seems to know her. Suddenly, a girl named Aki approaches her like they've known each other for years. Two other girls join in the conversation shortly after, but a gush of wind suddenly slams on them, and Mitsuko crouches to the ground, shaking. This gesture concerns Aki, and she quickly helps her friend up and walks her into the school. However, the wind blows again, and this time Mitsuko is so scared that she quickly dashes into the building. Although Mitsuko seems to be acting like a lunatic, Aki comforts her without judgment. Unsure of what's happening, Mitsuko tries to confirm if she's always studied at that school, and Aki reassures her that she did. However, the incident on the bus is too much for her to bear, so she tells Aki about it. She hysterically points out into the window with tears in her eyes and claims that the wind killed everyone. Because of this, Aki opens the window and tells Mitsuko to feel the wind. When nothing happens, she finally believes that all is fine. Assuming that Mitsuko just woke up with amnesia, Aki shows her around and introduces her to a few girls. There, Mitsuko meets a cheerful girl named Teiko and a girl named Sur, who is cool and likes to flip people off. They say she's called Sur because her attitude seems surreal. Later on, Aki asks them to go to the lake and skip class, to which they agree. However, on their way out, they meet a teacher who knows that they're plotting to skip class. When they get busted, the girls ditch the teacher and they run. As they exit the grounds, the girls can't help but giggle and feel the wind in their hair. After a few minutes of running, they finally reach the lake. Then, as everyone tries to catch their breath, Aki gazes at Mitsuko and tells her that she's an important person in her life. Later on, the other girls notice Mitsuko's acting weird that day, so Aki tells everyone about Mitsuko's nightmare. Teiko and Aki laugh about it, but Sur believes it's possible because parallel universes exist. She demonstrates the concept of it by throwing a rock in the lake. Then, as Sur instructs everybody to observe the ripples, a crocodile suddenly emerges from the water and bites Teiko between the legs. As she squirms and screams in agony, the other girls get drenched with her blood as it spurts everywhere. However, this is just a scenario in Sur's head and it's not really happening. Later on, Sur finds some pillows on the ground and she initiates a pillow fight. Then suddenly, Mitsuko pricks her finger, and when she looks up, she sees a bride with a high school girl, but they quickly vanish. Mitsuko finds this peculiar, but she shrugs it off and resumes playing with the others. In the middle of their pillow fight, Sur says that if you want to change your reality, you need to do something unexpected. She demonstrates this by lifting her skirt, and the other girls burst into laughter. However, she calms down and says that our fate may be predetermined, just like the time required for a feather to reach the ground. She also adds that you can trick fate by doing something unexpected without awareness. However, everything is starting to sound stupid to Aki, so she groans and tells Mitsuko that they should head back to school. Before Sur leaves with the other girls, she speaks to herself and says that life is surreal, so you shouldn't let it consume you. Elsewhere, Aki holds Mitsuko's hand as they run through the fields and into the school building. Finally, they reach their classroom, and then the teacher they ditched earlier comes inside. Mitsuko's eyes widen, but Aki tells the teacher that they left because they felt dizzy and needed some fresh air. Later on, the class starts, and Mitsuko notices a pillow on the floor, so she picks it up and passes it to Aki. Suddenly, the teacher brings out a machine gun and opens fire, killing everyone including Aki. However, Mitsuko is spared, and it turns out that the teacher is enraged that she cut classes. Just then, she fires into the air and goes berserk like a madwoman. While she does this, Sur and Teiko come in to rescue Mitsuko, and they run into another room where it's safer. Inside, another girl is with them, and she's hysterical about everything that's going on. Just then, another teacher walks in and the girl shows herself, wanting to be spared. However, the teacher shoots her mercilessly until she falls out of a window. Then, the teacher observes the room for other students to kill, and as she passes by the aisle, Teiko tries to stop her. Unfazed, the teacher shoots Teiko in the hand, and she later aims at her head and it explodes. Meanwhile, Sur leads Mitsuko out of the room, but the teacher catches them and she gets shot in the side. However, before she dies, she tells Mitsuko that life is surreal and she shouldn't allow it to consume her. Mitsuko is horrified by the sight of this, so she runs into the hallway along with the other girls who survived the massacre. Suddenly, music blasts from the speakers and everyone starts to flee the school while the teachers shoot them like they're out on a hunting spree. While Mitsuko runs with the other girls, they pressure her to come up with a solution to the ongoing crisis. Suddenly, the deadly wind returns and everyone gets bisected except for Mitsuko. Traumatized, Mitsuko keeps on running until she reaches a town full of women. There, she finds a policewoman and she desperately tries to speak to her, but she can't. Suddenly, Mitsuko hears the sounds of screaming and she clings to the policewoman's arms and asks if she can hear it too. Suddenly, the policewoman recognizes her and calls her by the name Keiko. Later on, she brings Mitsuko inside the station and introduces herself as Tomoko. Afterward, Mitsuko gazes at a mirror and finds a shocking discovery. She's now a woman named Keiko with a different face and hairstyle. However, she couldn't remember when this had all happened. Although Keiko is still trying to process the situation, Tomoko urges her to get in the car or they'll be late for the reception. As they slowly drive to their destination, the women on the streets tap on the car while laughing at them. They soon arrive in a church where a group of women enthusiastically welcomes her. Then, they all drag Keiko into a room where she finds Aki alive and all dolled up. Shaking, Keiko tries talking to Aki, but she whispers that she's aware of what's going on and she should just play along, and they'll talk later. For now, she needs to get ready for her own wedding. However, as the air from the blow dryer touches her head, Keiko remembers the incident on the bus, and this causes her to drop to the floor. Aware of her emotional distress, Aki tells the other girls to give her a moment alone with the bride. When the coast is clear, Aki tells her that she's both Mitsuko and Keiko, but she shouldn't panic for now. Left with no choice, Keiko allows Aki to prepare her for the wedding. At the same time, she closes her eyes and sees Sur, saying that life is surreal, don't let it consume you. When Keiko opens her eyes, she's all set, and the other girls walk in to compliment her. Suddenly, Aki walks closer to one of the girls, breaks both of her arms, and snaps her neck. Then, Tomoko arrives, and Aki knocks her to the floor and squashes her head. The other girls shake at the sight of this because they know they're next. True enough, Aki snaps two of the girls' necks and punches the remaining one in the gut. Later on, she encourages Keiko to team up with her in killing the last girl. Then, Aki hands her a broken wine bottle as a weapon. Finally, it's time for Keiko to walk down the aisle. However, she uses the broken wine bottle as a substitute for a bouquet, and nobody seems to mind this. Later on, everyone cheers for Keiko as she enters the hall, but when she gets closer to the end of the aisle, the girls suddenly mock her and push her around. Then, everyone strips to their underwear and they hysterically laugh at Keiko. Suddenly, the pianist opens a coffin and reveals the horrifying groom. It's some kind of a boar humanoid, and it has its tongue hanging on the side, all bloody. Keiko screams at the sight of this and she desperately tries to back away, but the other girls are forcing her to kiss it. However, Keiko stabs the beast with a wine bottle and she lets all hell loose and begins to kill everyone. As Keiko furiously stabs a girl, Aki enters the hall and tells her to come with her. But as they are about to flee, the teachers arrive, now covered in black leather suits. Not long after, an intense fight breaks out between them, and it doesn't take long until Keiko and Aki take the teachers down. Finally, they escape, but Keiko senses that someone is following them, so Aki tells her to leave while she lures them off. Although she doesn't want to, Keiko complies, and she runs around town in her wedding dress. Later on, she approaches a bridge where another woman welcomes her and calls her by the name Izumi. This confuses Keiko, and as she looks at her reflection in the mirror, she finds that she's now in the body of a marathon runner named Izumi. Shortly after, a few other girls approach her and they find it weird that she can't remember any of them. Although the incident at the church still dazes her, Izumi goes with the other girls until they reach a racing event. There, the people cheer for her as she runs with her track team. As they continue the race, her teammates remind her about the memories they shared in the past. This conversation motivates Izumi to win the race, but as she overtakes everyone, Sur and Teiko appear to cheer her on. Shortly after, Aki also enters the race and tells Izumi to stay focused. Suddenly, the boar-headed groom and the teachers appear and they begin to sabotage the race. Seeing this, Izumi keeps on running and Stuart tells her that she needs to escape that world. With the teachers and the boar being a few feet behind, Izumi strays from the other girls and runs without stopping. Finally, she reaches a huge cave where she meets a schoolgirl who's urging her to go inside. There, Izumi finds a bunch of other schoolgirls with bloody uniforms, and they're all standing with their heads bowed down like they're in a trance. Suddenly, the girl who accompanied her tells Izumi if she could kindly die because if she lives, then all of the other girls will suffer in her place. For this matter, the girls bring out a knife and attempts to kill Izumi. Then, the girl completely goes unhinged and blames Izumi for the death of everyone. Suddenly, Aki arrives and snaps the girl's neck. Aki is now addressing Izumi as Mitsuko, and together, they run past the group of girls until they get to an isolated place. There, Aki urges Izumi to say her real name. She complies, and as she screams that she's Mitsuko, Izumi disappears, and she's finally back to her old body. Then, Aki shows her wrists Mitsuko, and she's surprised by the wires that protrude from them. Aki urges her to pull the wires and destroy her, but Mitsuko refuses, so Aki slaps her to get a good grip on herself. Later on, Aki unravels the truth and tells Mitsuko that they're in a fictional world, and they've been forcefully placed in it. Only Mitsuko can stop the enemy because she's programmed to be the main character, and if she refuses to put an end to it now, they'll keep chasing and killing her forever. Left with no choice, Mitsuko rips the wires from Aki's body until she gets shredded in half. Suddenly, an exit appears in the distance, and Mitsuko follows the light. Later on, the exit leads her to a bustling kitchen filled with male cooks. Mitsuko is now in the world of men, and as she cautiously makes her way through the kitchen, she discovers another door that leads to an alley. There, she finds a bunch of men staring at a poster where she sees herself along with Izumi and Keiko. As she reads it, she discovers that the world she was in is a legendary video game named Tag. As she stares at the poster with disbelief, a man emerges from the crowd and approaches Mitsuko. Then, he tells her that he's amazed she made it this far and he welcomes her into the future. However, before Mitsuko could respond, she suddenly faints. Later on, she wakes up and finds herself in a cave. Then, as she walks further to explore it, she finds a tomb adorned with sculptures of women. Mitsuko is confused by this, but she continues to walk deeper into the cave until she runs into an old man playing Tag 3D. There, she witnesses herself, Izumi, and Teiko become the playable characters in the game. Suddenly, the old man senses her presence, so he stops the game to welcome her. But before Mitsuko could say anything else, the man reveals that she died in the spring of 2034 and he took a sample of her DNA. Moreover, he also took some DNA samples from her friends and he proudly presents them inside a glass box. There, Mitsuko sees Keiko, Izumi, Aki, and some of her other friends. As Mitsuko stares in bewilderment, the old man mocks her and says that her DNA's sole purpose is to be used for men's entertainment. In the meantime, the man from the alley appears and he gladly undresses and hops into the bed. He signals Mitsuko to lie with him, and with this, the old man says that his unrealized dream from 150 years ago is about to come true. As he tells Mitsuko to surrender to her destiny, she complies and slowly walks towards the man on the bed to lie down with him. Suddenly, she remembers Sir by the lake, saying that only something unexpected will change her destiny. Then, she observes as a feather lands on her pricked finger and the blood slowly spreads through it, making it red. Just then, Mitsuko snaps into reality and tries to strangle the man on the bed. Hysterical, she chokes the man and screams that they shouldn't be treated as toys. The man could only freeze with his blank mind, for he didn't expect any of this to happen. Then, Mitsuko tears the pillow open, unleashing the white feathers inside. The man on the bed pleads with her to stop, but she continues to act rogue, and later on, the feathers turn red. Suddenly, Mitsuko grabs the old man's cane and stabs herself with it. Consequently, red feathers spurt out of her lifeless body, leaving the old man devastated and hysterical. Just then, some flashbacks begin to play in Mitsuko's mind, including the one on the bus, Keiko's wedding, and Izumi's race. However, this time she kills herself at the start of every scenario. Mitsuko stabs herself with a pen, Keiko kills herself with a shard of glass, and Izumi also ends her own life. Elsewhere, Mitsuko lies on a vast field full of snow and claims that everything is finally over.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.